What is it about art? Music is, of course, art, or very often art. So some of the questions still apply. I want to suggest in terms of music that, of course, it is also material. That there's a way that you are affected materially. One of the ways I know that, we had a group of Russian monks from Valam Monastery on an island of St. Petersburg. They came to our church and they sang, half the concert was spiritual music and half the concert was Russian folk music. And they were great, but they had this huge, massive, tall Russian guy who sang basso profondo, I think, double bass. I sat at the back of our church, we had pews, and there was about 250 people there, and as I sat on the pew, when he got to his lowest note, my pew was shaking. I was freaked out. I thought, how on earth can somebody have a voice that is that deep and that powerful? And then one of the other guys he'd obviously been castrated because he was so high, it was off the planet. But it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music. But I thought, yeah, music actually is material. So if you go clubbing, for example, there's a club down here, and I'm sure you won't go clubbing, but if you do go clubbing, the big thing in clubbing is, of course, the bass. Because it does literally shake, and materially, I think it does affect us. Obviously, I'm going to argue that music is spiritual. Going back to that Valam choir, there was a lady there who never ever comes to the church. And she came in and she said, I'm so frustrated, angry, tough at work and so on. And at the end she came up to me and she said, David, that was so spiritual. And I said, what does that mean? And she said, don't start me. I said, no, it's okay. But I said, let's talk about what spiritual means. What do you mean? But people identify. You can see that. It does affect you. I think it affects you spiritually. And of course, it's cultural. There are different types of music. The Scottish bagpipes are one of the most wonderful instruments ever invented. We borrowed it from the Greeks, I confess that. But there are people who hear it and go, oh no. And yet there's a lament that you pay on the pipes called the pibroch. It's a style, it's classical pipe music, believe it or not. If ever I hear it and I'm away from Scotland, I instantly want to go home. It's just instantly send me home. We saw some of the things in the concert last night, the spirituals and so on. Music is cultural. It tells you a lot about culture. That's why Europop shows us what a disastrous state Europe is in. I mean that actually. So I think great rock music does something because it asks questions. Really bad pop music does something because it's always giving answers, and the answer is always fall in love and everything will be happy and bleh. Anyway. Some of its taste. Understanding contemporary European music. It's actually really interesting to look at the history, the media, how it's developed, where it's come from, what music is used. For me, music works best when it is actually folk music, and I don't mean the style of folk music, I mean it comes from people, rather than it gets instantly commercialized. We have, and I'm sure other countries have it too, things like, Britain's Got Talent or the X Factor and so on. But particularly Britain's Got Talent, they get people coming up and some people stand and sing and they can't, they're rubbish and everyone laughs. And then someone will come and sing and they're dressed like me with no sense of taste or style, and you look at them, you start laughing, they start singing and they've got a voice like Caruso and you, whoa! But by the time they get through, of course, by the time they get to the semi-final, they've all been dressed up, it's all been commercialized. And suddenly I'm going, I'm not interested anymore. Before they were singing from the heart. He was a car salesman and he's singing Pavarotti and it was from the heart. And now he thinks he's a superstar and he's had designers and everyone else work on him. You got to do this, you got to do that. And I'm screaming, no, let it be real. Let it be real. I think when you're talking about music, you're talking about creating or reflecting. Sometimes music reflects what we feel, but sometimes music will create. That's why it's very dangerous in church. I hate going to do an evangelistic event in a church where they spend the first 45 minutes psyching people up with the music. I'd much rather the music was a response to what people heard. In fact, I often go and do missions and say to them, I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to have no music at all, maybe afterwards. or unless it's a sung testimony or something. Non-Christians are present. You can't ask them to worship God. I'm also going to ask you to have no Bible reading and no prayer. Let me stand up and tell the gospel to people. Then we maybe pray. Then we might do something, if it's an out-and-out evangelistic thing. But I've seen music being used to manipulate people in a way that is absolutely horrendous. You go into a supermarket. If they play canned music, what do they play? They try and get music that's going to make you feel good, and you see how it affects. I cycle and I put headphones in when I cycle, when I get quite bored, and sometimes I'll listen to a sermon, but usually I'll listen to music. And you see how music affects you. If I'm listening to Beethoven, it doesn't help me. I don't get home any quicker, but I've noticed this. When I'm listening to Led Zeppelin, I go much quicker. Because there's music to drive to. You're driving a Harley Davidson. With all due respect, I probably wouldn't listen to you singing on the back of a Harley Davidson. Well, if you were on the back of the Harley Davidson, I would listen. But that's, I don't know. For me, that would be maybe that's just my. But that is the cultural aspect, because sometimes you're often trying to create a mood. If I'm having a romantic dinner with my wife, I love Leonard Cohen, but I am not going to put Leonard Cohen on when I'm having a romantic dinner. It's just not going to... Right, I'm not going to go any further with that one. I'm going to stop there. Music, of course, is art. Music is commerce. It is being used to sell things. It is politics. It's used in that way. And it's also religion, of course. Very strange phenomenon in Britain. I can't say for anywhere else in Europe. But in evangelical churches, 20 years ago, a student would come to a university or city town, and the student would ask, where's the best preaching? Now they ask, where's the best praise? And its style of music has become hugely, hugely important. And I am having, personally, some difficulties with that, but we can reflect on that as we go through it. Lady Gaga is a genius. Now, I don't like her music, but she's a genius. And I'll tell you why she's a genius. She's one of the few artists who get to do whatever she wants. And she's incredibly intelligent. She's got a song called Judas, which has so much biblical knowledge in it. I'm absolutely quite shocked. Like, she does a play on the word Peter being the rock, and various other things. But the reason I played that clip was to show you the power of music in this. If we played it all the way through, and then I played it again, I guarantee you, whether you like it or not, that during the night tonight, you will be humming that tune. She's very clever at getting these phrases, catchy tunes, and then she puts lyrics to them. Now that, repetition, baby I was born this way, baby I was born this way, baby I was born this way. God made me this way. What she's saying is, it's a song about human sexuality. And basically, if you're gay, God's made you this way. If you're this way, God's made you this way. And it's just hammered home. And people get messages that are they just become part of what you think. Oh, I was born this way. I was born. What? How do you know? Well, no, everyone knows. No, they don't. Everyone doesn't know. But it's just part of the culture. I was born this way. I was doing. And that's how music is used, I think, to get people. I don't know if I doubt this would play. No, it won't play. Another example of the way that music is used. I cannot believe. I have to confess, I don't really like Christian music. Okay, I apologize for that in lots and lots of ways. There's a band called Sons of Korah who play psalms I totally adore, and there's some brilliant Christian musicians. But personally, I don't understand the point of a separate Christian music chart and Christian gospel awards, because it's the ghettoization of Christianity, in my view. And I think we should be kind of out there in the mainstream. One aspect of music that has really made a big hit, though, and that is Christian rap. Now, for me, I hear someone like Lecrae, and I go, whoa, that is just incredible. And Christian rap has proved quite popular in Europe, or rap has proved quite popular because we're all nice, white, liberal Europeans, so we like black people, and a black gospel choir is fine, and a white gospel choir is awful, and, a black rapper, and it's from the Bronx, and it's cool, and, we like wearing trainers as well, and, we say yo and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, right. But that's what happens. So, someone like Lecrae comes along, and he starts rapping stuff that if I said, I'd get thrown off the radio. But he can do it, and I just think, That's incredible. That's music being used in that way. Mumford & Sons, what's interesting about them, you listen to their first album, and I listen to it and I think, unbelievable. This guy's a backslidden Christian. And amazingly, he is. His parents are the praise leaders in one of the big charismatic networks in England. And I know that John Mumford himself, a friend of mine, works London City Mission. He still goes down on a Saturday to help with London City Mission and do stuff. But he's a guy who's wandered away from his faith and coming back to it. And you hear that angst and that questioning and everything in the songs. And it makes the songs for me so incredibly beautiful and incredibly powerful. And I'm delighted they're a commercial success. I really am delighted with that. But for me, when I first heard the first Mumford & Sons album, I was in tears actually, because I couldn't believe that somebody was able to express things that sometimes I felt myself. And so that's a kind of folk thing. I'll play a couple other things later. I'll just mention them just now because we don't have time. But is there any kind of music that's wrong? Is there music that's of the devil? I was at a wedding in Sweden, and I sat beside a man who was absolutely huge. He had long red hair down to his waist. I said, my name is, I can't remember, it was something like, oh, it was Pilgrim. My name is Pilgrim. I said, oh, nice to meet you, Pilgrim. What do you do? He said, I live in the woods. I don't believe in electricity. And I thought, why do I have to sit beside the nutcases? Anyway, I said, what are you doing for a living? He said, well, two things. He said, I'm training to be a Reformed Episcopal priest. I said, Reformed Episcopal? I didn't even know that existed, never mind in Sweden. And then he said, also, I'm a lead singer in a death metal band. I said, death metal? I said, like black metal, but just one step blacker. And he said, yeah. I said, you're a Christian who's a lead singer in a death metal band. He said, yeah. He says, well, one of the biggest bands in the world for death metal. I says, what does that mean? He said, well, called Crimson Tide. He said, we play concerts, 10,000 people in Norway, northern Germany. It seems to be a Scandinavian thing. We've been to America as well. I said, Pilgrim, I've got two issues. He says, what are they? I said, number one, you're against electricity. How do you play death metal being against electricity? And he says, oh, I make an exception for that, which I thought was great. And I said, the other thing, I says, are you a Christian death metal band? And he says, yeah, we're all Christians. I said, okay, I'm just trying to get my head round of all these goths and slayers and people who think that heavy metal is too light. And you're playing death metal or thrash metal. And he said, yeah. And he said, listen to our stuff. You know this, I went to listen to it, and actually it was really good. Musically, it was brilliant. Very, not my style. It's not going on my iPlayer. And actually, lyrically, it was great. It wasn't overtly, Jesus is your savior. I was just astounded. We put it there, if you can't use this song as a springboard to the gospel, please hand in your conference pass at the door. There's several Mumford & Sons songs that are like that. There are other songs that are like that. I find some of the best music for the gospel is written by non-Christians. Amen. I really do. And even something like Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, which people say is occultish, and it is, at a bit. But if you think about it, if you cannot use the words, there's a lady who's sure that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she's told. There's so much in modern contemporary music that is actually asking all the questions that Christians want to be answering. And if you can't get your friends to ask them, give them music. And that's, honestly, music is so good in that sense in evangelism. You can listen to news music. I would say listen to music because you like it. Don't listen to certain types of music because you think it's cool. And the same with using music. I really dislike it from a preacher's point of view when I hear another preacher quoting musicians that they haven't a clue who they are or what they're about. And as though they were kind of really au fait with them, trying to be really, really, really cool. Usually, Christians who are after cool tend to be about 10 years behind, which is really uncool. The ultimate in cool, actually, is not to care. I remember one of our students came up to me once and she said, David, I really, really like about you. You're so uncool, it's cool. I just thought, well, okay. I think I'll take that as a compliment. You can use music in so many different ways. Play music, orchestrating, I'm saying. Again, I don't understand why churches don't encourage a wider variety of music. Don't make every musician in your church play in a praise band. In fact, sometimes cancel the praise band. Encourage, I know a whole group who, they call themselves Deaf Shepherd, who attended church, a free church in Scotland, and I asked them, why do you attend? You're all basically punk. And they said, because this is the only church we go to that we know we're not going to be leading the praise, because that's not what we do. And you can encourage that. Of course, you create praise. You can evangelize children with music. I will play you an example of that as well. It's a great way for people to remember things. I know huge parts of the Bible by heart. Why? Because I've got a brilliant memory? No. Because I grew up in a church where we sang the Psalms. I know whole reams of scripture by heart because of that. Can I just make a kind of wee personal plea? Please sing Psalms in your church. Not exclusively, we used to sing it exclusively. But you want a song that's full of emotion. You want a song that appeals, you know. We had a guy come in he was a German who said he was from Turkey and that he was English. I mean, anyway. And he came in, and after the service I said, how did you cope? And he said, oh, Davey, man, love the plain song. No, it wasn't plain song, but it was a cappella singing. He said, that is so cool and so spiritual. And he said, the emotion of it really got to me. And I think music is incredibly emotional, so we can use it in that way. So I'm going to finish there. There's so much more we could say about music, and we will discuss it. And if anyone's watching this clip, of course this is incredibly superficial, and there's a lot to learn, but I want to just encourage people to think about music, to use music, and to realize that we serve a God who sings. In Zechariah, he rejoices over us with singing. If God sings, we got to sing. Okay, let's leave it there.